I have a story to tell you, though, and it starts last June on the Yellow Line on the way to Parc Jean Drapeau, and I was in the metro with my two kids. Miles was 14 and a half at the time, and Kate was 13. She had just turned 13. And maybe you'll love me less after this next line. We've always said, my wife and I have always said that our kids have always shown since they were little that they would be incredible adults and slightly difficult teens. And I mean that the right way. My son is literally the most beautiful and sensitive and caring kid that you will ever meet. Did somebody giggle? Did somebody who knows Miles Serry doubt that? Trust me, it's true. Which means that he's going to go out in the world as an adult and he's going to make it a better place. But that heart that might make the world a better place is also a heart that kind of gets hurt when you're 15 years old. And my daughter, Kate, when she was 2 years old, she looked my wife dead in the eye and said, "No, I the boss." Which, to be frank, is exactly the kind of attitude you want from an adult woman, right? You want them to know themselves. You want them to not take any shit. You want them to get things done. You do not want that same 14-year-old standing in your foyer refusing to wear gloves when it's minus 15 outside. So my wife and I have developed a parenting philosophy. And actually, my wife's a scientist, so it's more like a ratio. We call it the warmth to couch ratio. And we defined our role as increasing the number of memories that they look back on as adults warmly that make them smile, and reducing the number of memories that they have to recount to a therapist later in life. More warmth, less couch. So on this particular day, we're on the metro because we're reaching what for me is a parenting milestone. Forget baby's first steps, forget baby's first words. We are going to baby's first rock show. Now, for me, it's particularly nice because this is not a situation where dad is taking the teenagers to see music that he doesn't care about. We're all going to see Phoebe Bridgers, and we all love Phoebe Bridgers. And this moment is really important to me because not only do I want to be available for my children to have these times, I want them to want me to be there. And that was not always easy because I was a courtroom lawyer when they were little. And that meant that I would leave the house before they got up and I would come home after they'd gone to bed, and I hated it. I remember one particular time I was in a meeting with a partner at the firm, and I excused myself briefly to go and tuck the kids in by phone. And for those of you who have seen me at all, I don't have much of a poker face. So I got back into the partner's office, and it became obvious that I was kind of bummed out about the fact that I was tucking my kids in by phone rather than in person. And he reached up to me and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "Don't worry, Keith, eventually they'll stop asking for you." Which was not the encouragement I was looking for. So yeah, we're going to this, and it's clearly, like, it's meaningful to me. I want it to be meaningful for them. I will never forget my first concert, 1986, Tamatik Auditorium, Kitimat, British Columbia, Platinum Blonde. They opened with Situation Critical, never forget. So we arrive at the venue, and it's Parc Jean Drapeau, so those of you who've been there know there's thousands of people there, and despite this, I know that like every time I'm in a rock club, I am dragging up the average age and dragging down the average cool factor. And that's in part because everywhere we turn, there are literally hundreds of mostly young women, but also men, who look the way Phoebe Bridgers' music feels. They look a little sad, they look a little smart, they look a little sophisticated, and they look more than a little angry. And I don't get much time to sit there and think about how awkward I feel because about 4 or 5 songs into the set, Phoebe Bridgers introduces Kyoto. And it's one of my favorite songs of hers. It's, for those of you who haven't heard it, it's kind of like a major key take on a minor key part of life. It's about what happens when a parent fails you and how we learn to process this as we get older. And she starts the music by saying, "This one's for all the dads." And every one of the mini Phoebes that's surrounding me and my kids turns on their heel and stares because I'm clearly the only dad within eyeshot. And for a second, I wonder if they're thinking that I'm a poser. And then for a second, I think maybe they're jealous of my kids. Maybe they wish they were there with their dad, listening to a song about a dad who tried and failed to do his best. And thankfully, I don't get to think about that too long because the music starts and I have one kid in one arm and the other kid in the other arm, and we're jumping in time with the music and we're screaming, "I don't forgive you. But please don't hold me to it. Born under Scorpio skies, I wanted to see the world through your eyes until it happened. And then I changed my mind. And I felt this strange feeling. I was literally floating above us. I had this physical recognition that I've never had before, and it's the recognition that my kids and I were making a memory. And it wasn't a couch one either. It was a big, warm, smiley one. Thanks very much.